Right, welcome back. A bit more work on the Escort. When I'd left you, I'd just done the front section without the sump guard panel. So the next bit was going to the plans. You've got that piece there that had to be threaded through, because you've got to glue all that in. You've got to thread that underneath, and then that links into a little tab that sticks out by the coils, the suspension coils. So you put that on. Then you put the exhaust in, and that drapes pretty much on the top lip of the what's the name channel, the prop shaft channel. Once you've done that, then it tells you to put the rear suspension and the prop shaft mount. So you put the prop shaft mount in first with the cap, and then you put the suspension arms on top of there, and then once all that's dry, then you put the brake discs in, and you've got to do the front brake discs as well, the prop shaft itself and those two rods, don't know what they are, and then the sump guard after that. So that's pretty much all that work done. The underneath's done. So putting the camera back down, so you can't see with the sump guard, but the rod's underneath there, it connects into there. Look, there's like a little rod that goes down, and then you just hook the little eye bolt on, one there and one there. Bloody hairs. And then once that's done, then I put the sump guard on. I was trying to clamp it because that kept popping out, this edge, and I put a clamp here and a clamp here, but then the radiator popped out, so I just took the radiator away and then put the scissor clamps in, one there and one there. Once that was dried, I put the radiator back in, because it mounts into a little hole that's on the underneath of there, with on top of the rods. There's like a little square. There's a little square hole. I can actually show you that. There's the peg there. On the main suspension crossbar, you can see the little tiny tab there, and that connects into the hole underneath here somewhere. And push that in, just put the clamps on. Obviously before the sump plate, I'll put the exhaust in, and it bends down slightly into the channel at the back there, underneath the prop shaft housing there. There's your prop shaft, so you glue it into there, and then you have to put it underneath the prop shaft, because the prop shaft mount, it mounts onto that peg there, and there's another peg there. You can see it in front of my fat fingers. And then you've got the suspension arms, that mounts into a little hole there, and it just mounts onto the flat there. And then once all that's dry, then you just put the brakes on. So you got the rear brakes and the front brakes. That was sticking out, that peg. You just slip it on and then hold them on. And them are for the wheels, them little pegs. Where on the rear ones, I've got to put the rims on first, and then there's going to be a little peg that goes through the little hole there, and that will go into the little hole on the brake. If I look at the plans, if I turn the page over, because that's going to be my next step. So what it's telling me on the plans, the front ones just slip on. Where am I looking? Front ones just slip on, and then there's a little cap that will glue onto that peg there. And on the rear ones, there's actually a peg with a cap already on it, and that just goes through the rim into the rear brakes. So with that being said, it's time to put the rims and tyres on now, which are these. So I'll put the rims onto the tyres. Now on the tyres, you've actually got, I don't think the camera's going to pick it up, on the one side you've got Dunlop, and on the other side you've got Goodyear. But because Roger Clark's car got Dunlop sponsor logos, I've decided to put the Dunlop on the outer and just keep the Goodyears on the inner. So again, with that being said, it's time to get them tyres and rims onto here. Right, welcome back. Significant progress has been made on the Escort with its flaws. Now, when I'd left here, I'd just about to put the wheels in. The front wheels, there was like a rod coming through there, and you just put the wheel on. It's just a cap, so you just had to glue the cap on. On the rear wheel, there was nothing at all. It was the rod with the cap glued onto it had to be shoved in through the hole there, and then into the brake and disc hub. So that just had to be glued in. So that's that sorted. The next thing I did was I put the roll cage together, as you can see with the glue marks. This has got to be one of the worst roll cages I've ever done on all of the cars that I've ever done. This has got to be the absolute worst one. So going on to the plans. First, it tells you to glue this Z piece into the back. I did that. And then you've got two like L square shapes, and then that rod in the middle. And you've got to make sure that the rod is pointing towards the top. But getting them in was an absolute nightmare, because it tells you to put the back ones in there. The two prongs there go into two little tabs, like backing tabs. They didn't go there at all. They was totally out. And then gluing them into there, they kept wanting to pop out. And gluing those two together with that one rod, absolute nightmare. So initially I did it with super glue, and it was a right pain in the arse. Right, so you got the two tabs there. They don't actually meet. They actually go to the side of it, to the inside corner, because they're not wide. The space between there and there on the actual Z shape is not wide enough. So I just had to put a drop of super glue in the inner corner just to get them to meet. Putting them into there, kept wanting to pop out. I'd get the one side in perfect. I'd just about get the other side in perfect, and then that pops out. Absolute nightmare. Eventually I managed to do it. Did it with the super glue, let it cure, and then just drizzle some Tyre extra thin. At the back here, that one went in the hole perfect, but then it popped out, and as the glue dried, it's just resting on the front with the glue. So once the roll cage was in, I let that dry. I then put the two side panels on. So you got that one there and that one there. Now, if you could just see that lip is on the actual chassis itself, and then you get the other lip and it locks into place on here. And then here, it's loose, but there's actually a little triangle piece there on the chassis, and you just put a drop of glue in there. So what I did is I just glued those in, held it with the tape, and then with the dashboard, there's actually like a little groove on the inside here, and a little groove on the inside there, and you just slot it into place. And then I just drizzled the Tyre extra thin, let it get in the crack, and it dried a treat. So that's the interior done now. I've still got to top these up. You can see the glue marks there, a bit where I had the glue on my fingers and it's rubbed some of the paint off. I've really got to top that up. I've also got to top the caps up, because the caps are still in the primer grey, the wheel caps. So I've got to do those. Now on the back part, it's like a shelf, as it were. So you got, I think that's the battery. I don't know what that is. It's some kind of tub. But this thing here, it tells you not to use it. But on the restoration photos, there's actually two. One goes in the little groove there, and that little groove there, another one goes in, but they only give you one, and they said don't use it. So I've decided to use it. I just wish I could put a spare rear wheel in here, because I've got some spares upstairs, but it's too big to go in there because it's supposed to clip onto the back so it's standing up. But I don't think when I put the body shell on there's going to be enough room for that, so unfortunately I'm going to have to leave that empty. Right, so that's the nightmare of the interior done. Now what really pisses me off, I do apologise for my profanity, but that's how I feel. The body shell is pretty much complete. But then Italeri, in their infinite wisdom, decide, oh, what we'll do is the front bit of the splitter here, we'll leave that as a separate piece. But we'll have a whole body shell. So that's really, really got on my wick. And once you take the tape off, you'll see in this corner here, it doesn't meet 100%. Once I take the tape off, because this is virtually dry now. So with the body shell, I've just filled in the little holes for the rear view mirrors, because on Rally GB, the Mk.II Rally, he doesn't have them on. In the Irish and Scottish Rally, he has them on, but not the Mk.II. So I've just filled them with a bit of filler, and I've got to sand that down. But I'm going to take the tape off in a minute, and I'll show you the issue that I'm having with this. I just don't understand why that couldn't be one hole moulded into the body shell. So with that being said, let's get this tape off. Right, so taking the tape off that was holding down while the glue dried. Look at that there. I'm going to have to reconstruct that with some like Milliput or something. And around the back here, there's a gap. So that's going to have to be filled in. So, I mean, it's not too bad on this side. But on this side, it is absolutely crap. I mean, if I get the photo on the front of the box art, let's move that out of the way. You can see there's a little line, but it joins and it's smooth. I think it's an absolutely stupid idea that they think, oh, then what we'll do is we'll leave that loose and then the modeller can glue that on. But we'll leave the rest of the body shell in one piece. I mean, I've had kits where I've had to put the fender wells on, I get it. But to release, to have the whole shell whole, and then you just got to glue that splitter on the bottom. Whoever thought in the Italeri that was a bloody good idea, they want shooting. They really do. Just to leave that pit loose. What an absolute stupid idea. Right. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to try and repair this with some Milliput. Try and get it as one as I can. Because to be honest, I've only got to do just above my fingernail there. That's got to be redone. Or I could chop that off, but maybe I could like sand that down a bit instead of using Milliput. But I'm definitely going to have to fill that gap in there. You can see it. So I'm going to see what I'll see what I can do. I might sand the fender well to meet that. But if anybody at Italeri is watching, which I doubt it, or somebody who works for Italeri, or somebody who review kits for Italeri, tell them to remodel this, will you, and just have that as one piece. Absolutely bloody stupid. I just don't know why. I just give up. I really do.